Hi, I'm Dave from Boyinaband.com and welcome to day 5 of the 7-day song on Hardstyle. Yesterday we finished off our synths, so today we'll add the remaining noises to the track, the effects, and some authentic hardstyle vocals. As you can see, I've arranged the track now, and I'll be talking about what I did in day 6. I figure it's a lot less boring this way than clicking and dragging a bunch of clips around for an entire video, but yeah, let's start with those vocals, why not? So we're going to right click and create audio track. Need to make sure it's got the correct input selected. You can see it's coming through there. Woo! So yeah, make sure it's selected and set to record mode down here. That little button, record enable. Great stuff. And then it's time to think of what to say for your hook. Now, a good hardstyle hook will have a heavy accent and be devoid of lyrical meaning. Ideally, you want to say a random phrase that involves mentioning the fact that there will be a lot of low frequencies in this particular song. Don't worry if you feel like this is patronising to your audience. While most hardstyle listeners have probably realised by now that there is a focus on bass in hardstyle music, it appears they appreciate the reassurance now and again. So, here we go. I'm going to do it just before the drop. Put on the click so I can hear when to come in. Random phrase, pump the bass. Perfect. Random phrase, pump the bass. Now we need to process it until you can't tell how little talent it required to think up that vocal. So firstly, we're going to go into our track, we call it random phrase, and insert a M-class compressor. Now this is always good to have in a vocal, just to even out each syllable to a similar volume so you can hear it all. Otherwise you'll have some loud parts and some quiet parts. No one likes a vocal with bipolar disorder, so let's squash it considerably with 5/8 input gain, so bringing up a couple of decibels there so it's nice and loud when it comes in. Then bring the threshold right down to about minus 25 decibels. And the ratio up to 16:1, so squashing the crap out of it. So a quick explanation of what that does. This means that anything that's over the minus 25 decibel mark will be squashed by a ratio of 16:1. For instance, if it was 16 decibels over that point, it'll be squashed to 1 decibel over that point. So the ratio defines how much dynamic range you want to leave in your vocal. In dance music genres, generally that's pretty much none. So that gives us this. If we solo it out, I'll just get rid of the enable monitoring as well. Random phrase, pump the bass. And next up, EQ. We're going to bring up the high shelf loads. I'm going to go for like 15 decibels. Bring it down a little bit, which gives us this. Random phrase, pump the bass. As you can hear, it's really, really high-end heavy now, and you get a lot of airiness, which is great for those vocals. This will depend on your voice and on your mic and all kinds, but these are just the settings that I've used. And parameter 1 we're going to use to bring up those mids, the high mids, around 650 for a bit more clarity, quite considerably. Random phrase, pump the bass. So it has a bit more body without invading the bass end of the frequency spectrum. And then with param 2, we're going to bring it up around 1.52 kilohertz. Random phrase, pump the bass. By the same amount, which starts to give us a bit of that radio effect. Random phrase, pump the bass. But more of that will come in a second. So listen before. Random phrase, pump the bass. And after. Random phrase, pump the bass. Completely changes the feel and makes it much louder, but the squashing of that volume brings a nice authentic processed feel, which I think adds to the tone when we add this next part, which is a pulverizer. Now you can do this with a compressor and a subtle bit of Scream 4, but I felt like playing with Reason 6's new devices. So we're going to squash by 3/4, so squash it a lot, and bring that dirt right up to full. And the tone as well. Now this just means we've squashed the crap out of it and then added a healthy amount of grit to the tone. I found this tone knob kind of makes it brighter if you have it higher up. So this is what we've got so far. Random phrase, pump the bass. And as you can hear, that's starting to get us that distortion. Now keep that frequency to full so it's not taking out any of those highs. In fact, we're going to bring up the resonance a little bit so the highs are a bit more emphasized. Wow, that was freaking cool. Let's bring it back. Random breaths tend to sound good when they're distorted, apparently. But yeah, that resonance. Random phrase, pump the bass. You still want to have a bit of those mids in there, but the resonance feeds back the signal into the filter a bit, making a more high-pitched sound, like when you leave a guitar by an amp or when you drop a brick on a hamster. So that's a reasonable amount of squashiness. Last thing here, we're going to chuck on the echo. Make sure sync mode is on, and we're going to turn the time to 1/4. So it's pump the bass, bass, bass. And bring up that feedback quite a lot. Just nice and long to continue our theme of having horrendously echoey sounds. And I'm going to leave the filter frequency as it is, but stop playing with the drive. Let's bring that up a bit and put it on distortion mode, so those echoes are a bit more distorted. Which is quite nice. Again, it's all up to taste here. Now turn dry wet just below a half. So it's a really prominent effect, but the first instance of the sound is still louder than the preceding echoes. So lastly here, we're just going to change this ducking to just over a half. Now this means it won't overlap the original too much, so we can hear what is being said a bit better and really get this vitally important lyrical message across. So take a listen without effects.
Random phrase, pump the bass.
And with effects. Vocal processing is something you can have a lot of fun with. Try playing with bandpass filters before distortion for an even more intense radio sound, for instance. Vocoders are great too, and also try multi-tracking for an even thicker vocal. So that's the vocals. Now join me in part 2, where I'll add the vital effects and show you a sweet resampling technique.